Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unnamed and Untamed. It is your favorite trio, Sarah, Mare, and Sonia. And today's episode, we are going to touch on something that, well, we're going to do more than touch on it. You know how we do. We always dive in, but hair loss and talking about different causes, different root causes, dare I say, and kind of give some things for you guys to look at, maybe some lab work to consider, diet, supplementation, share some of our own experience and go from there. But before we're going to start it off with a peach and a pit, just kind of a weekly recap from this last week. So Mary, you're in green on my screen. So you want to go first?
Yeah.
Tell us about your week.
Yeah, recap. Excellent week. I have been transitioning my clients into kind of a new check-in system that has gone very well. Almost everybody's there. I'm hoping by the end of the week I have everybody all situated. And I'm 1 week, 2 days out from moving. So that's always a fun time for everyone has moved. So that's great. Basically, any free time I have involves going through things and purging. I think like that's the theme. So many trash bags. As far as like clothing we're donating, we sold our washer already. I can tell you Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji is not like, I just don't understand the people that are on there. They're just very confusing and they ghost you. Like, why inquire? Why inquire? Do you have the washer and dryer? And then you're like, yes, it's available. And then nothing. Or they say, they're inquiring about the washer and dryer, and you're like, the washer is sold. And they say, I want the washer. And you're like, okay, well, it's sold. And then they say, what about the dryer? And you're like, in my head, I'm like, but you just said you just want the washer. Like, I don't understand. Like, is there a communication gap here? Like, I'm really confused. So that's where we're at in my life. All is well, just a lot of humor.
Moving is stressful.
It's a vibe. It is a vibe that people do this like multiple times a year. Not my jam. Nope, not my jam at all.
No, I'm like, moving was stressful. We're still trying to like unpack and like we still have like piles of stuff to go donate. It's mind numbing too when you start to move, when you have to start to get rid of stuff, how much stuff you have inside of your house that if it were to disappear, you would have never even noticed and or cared.
That's our rule though. Our rule, like we have a household rule. If you touch it and you have not touched it in the last 6 months, rights are gone. You must donate that so somebody else can utilize it. Yeah. So that's our thing. And then we're also kind of shopping we need a bed frame and we need a dining room table and chairs.
So if you're out there listening.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you have any places, you're in Canada and you're like, this is the place. And then it's like coordinating the movers with like, it's a lot.
It's brutal. I'm exhausted here. Like just thinking about it. I'm like, wow, that sounds miserable. And our lease is up in June or July is one of those months. And I'm just like, we've had so many issues with this house. We've talked about it, the black mold and this and that. It's like, I don't want to move though. Cause I'm like,
are you moving again?
I can't. I need like at least 2 years. So I always say it's colder than dick. And then everyone's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Just my saying it's colder than a witch's tit. How about that? It's cold here. It's like cold. It's frosty. It's icy in the morning. And our house is like really big and, which is really cool. We moved out of the city a little bit more so we could have a bigger space for the kids, but it's a small fortune to heat up. And all the windows in the front of the house don't close. So they leak. And then the flue is bolted open. So if we do not have the fireplace on, you can literally feel the cold breeze just taking our heat away. And so
That's like
It's
where we're
been-
living right now. Like that's the situation where we're
Is
living
it?
right now. And
Where you're just
our,
like,
our heater constantly, like last year, our heater broke 3 times.
oh, I don't know what would happen if our power went out. That's
Oh,
like
the winter?
terrifying.
Oh my God, that would be awful for you guys.
Yeah, we'd have to go stay in a hotel or something like that. It's
For
like
viewers who can't see Sonia, she's actually wearing it like a little puffer right now.
Yeah.
wearing a puffer jacket.
I was gonna say, I remember Mare, when yours broke, you like came on the podcast with like the scarf and like, cause
That's
Yeah.
right.
you're like living in
It was like
igloo.
literally all, it was like eyes. Like, let me tell you, that Udi, you need an Udi. Now
I
you
need an
wish you
Udi.
bought
I'm
the
gonna
damn
write
Udi.
myself a note. Family Udis. Yeah.
Christmas.
That's your
gift.
Christmas outfits. Get Udi.
Yes, that's gonna be it. It's perfect.
It's not too early.
It's like I am a Florida girl to the core. I do not like being cold. And right now, obviously, like with my protocol, I'm not eating a whole lot on some days. And on those not eating a whole lot days, I'm mostly eating because fresh fruit goes bad, especially berries. It's like they're not in season right now. So I'm just eating frozen berries, and then I'm just cold all the time. I'm like drinking warm water just to stay warm. I'm like, this is awful. I know. How's sunny Florida, man?
Yeah.
Sarah?
Well,
Yeah, by the way,
we're getting a cold front this weekend.
Oh.
I saw. What is that though? Like, what's your degrees? Is it like 50?
I think it's gonna be a high of like 68 or 65.
Brutal.
But it's so brutal because
to
I'm
survive.
we're going to the beach for a bachelorette. So
Oh, that is
Oh,
sad.
that's right.
so it's gonna be nippy, but
Literally.
we will pull through.
I believe in you.
Yeah, we will rally.
You're
Yeah.
gonna get a little wild.
I was just gonna say tequila is great for helping warm up. So yeah.
Note to all the listeners, if you're having body temperature issues, fuck anything else. Shots of tequila.
Just shots. Like that's
That's in
why-
tequila. Keep that heart rate up and that body temperature going.
So a couple of years ago, we went on a Baltic cruise, and
Yeah.
we went to Russia in St. Petersburg, and we had some of their vodka. It was like a tasting thing. Fuck, like that's how they stay warm. Like figured it out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a little lit.
Yeah, but no, it'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of cold, my little sister is moving this Thursday. She has always wanted to live in New York City, and long story short, finally made it happen. And kind of sealed the deal with new job, apartment. She's going to be living with one of her friends, but I spent some time with her this weekend. Cried a few times. But yeah, I went to the mall with her yesterday, and we were like looking for like some last minute like warm weather stuff for her, or I'm sorry, warm clothes for the cold weather.
Yeah.
She's gonna be in for it a little bit with
Oh yeah.
this transition.
Where's
It's
she
gonna be
moving
a hard
to?
transition.
New York City, like I want to say she's like Greenwich, like kind of like near like Soho a little bit, kind of vibes. So she's excited.
My baby nephew is in New York City. My sister was actually there this past weekend visiting. So I'm so excited for her. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. My
Yeah.
So
parents
when
are
you're
moving to
visiting?
Florida.
I'm
So-
hoping to visit. Yeah, I'm staggering my visit because I don't want to like my mom's already talking about when she's visiting. Like my aunt's gonna be there this weekend, like on a work trip. So I'm like, oh, I'll pace myself and maybe February. Maybe I'll do a bundle up and come in like February. We'll
Oh, it'll
see.
be ripe. Yeah, it'll be ripe in February.
Yeah.
It'll still
Yeah.
be cold. Well, fun. I'm excited for you.
Excited
Let's
for
kick
all.
this thing off.
So
so
how do we want to start?
Yeah. We should just talk about maybe I can go through like the stages of hair loss, and then we can talk about identifying if you're having hair shedding or hair loss, and then like what are the causes and some solutions.
Yeah.
That like works. And then
Yeah.
and jump into so Mara's really, really awesome. She brought up the cat to remember these different phases, but it's not in order, but it's really cute and you'll remember this, right? So you have 3 phases. You have the anagen, you have the catagen, and then you have the telogen phase. And the anagen phase is basically where the hair is actually growing from the shaft. And it's on average about, I think it's about 2 to 6 years, which is like kind of a long window. But you imagine all the hairs that are length on our head, those are all in the anagen phase. So it's about 90% of our hairs in that anagen phase. The catagen phase, and if anyone's thinking of anything else while I'm saying this, feel free to jump in, right? Because there's so much information surrounding this. But the catagen phase is typically where your hair is actually transitioning from the hair growth to the hair loss phase. And it is the smallest amount of your hair at that time. So it's like 0.5 to I think 0.2% of every follicle in your hair is kind of in this phase. So I always kind of like explain it like spring is the anagen, and then fall is the catagen, where all the leaves change colors. That's the catagen. And then the telogen is the winter, right? When everything starts to come and fall out of your head, right? Well, not all of it. Not all of your hair is falling out of your head. Only specific hairs, right? And that phase normally is about 3 to 4 months. Now, you can lose anywhere from like, 80 to like 150 hairs a day. And I think this is where people will start to feel like if they're normally like 50, or they have been in a lower stage of telogen for a while, and now they're going into a place where they're having a heavier stage of telogen, or for example, that telogen phase has what I like to consider sped up. So rather than being in a 3 to 4 months, it's like all coming in a 1 month period. It will feel like massive hair shedding / hair loss. Yeah. I always like to use hair shedding versus hair loss. Hair loss typically would describe something like alopecia aorta, like an autoimmune condition where the follicle itself is no longer producing hair, versus hair shedding where our hair is falling out. And then we'll start to get those like little baby hairs eventually come back in to take their place. That would be hair shedding. I think the thing to remember as well is, like I was saying, the telogen phase, which is where hair is actually shedding out, can shorten due to the same time, like almost the same sort of stuff when we talk about your period becoming more erratic, or other like biomarker feedbacks having massive changes, like hair, or I'm sorry, I said hair, but I went like this with my nails. Your nails becoming more brittle, more changes, thickening. Normally that isn't just right now. That's kind of like what has been going on the past month or 2 months. And so stress, trauma, infection, disease, COVID, autoimmune condition triggers like outside of alopecia. So maybe like a Crohn's flare up, or UC, or psoriasis flare ups, like big stressors on the body can create this telogen phase to go from that like 4 month to 1 month, which would create massive hair shedding during that time, to where it's like every time you're shampooing your hair, it's falling out more and more. Anything that you guys feel like you want to add into that? I know I kind of dove into that a little bit.
Just understanding that life cycle is helpful, because it's not necessarily what you did this week or last week, right? It could have been something 3-4 months ago, something 2 months ago. You got to kind of look back a little bit. And if, as we get into some of the repair stuff and how to help this, it's going to also take some time. And as always, stress is a big piece of it. So like
stress, dieting too, because of the nutritional malnutrition that comes along with dieting in general. It's like, what are our favorite things to do as women in America? We love to diet. It's like, great. Right. And now my hair's shedding, and it's like, okay. It's like,
I think like that's the hardest thing, is like when we have somebody who is, you've seen that crazy hair shedding that literally feels like, let's be real, it feels like fucking hair loss when you're shedding like that. Like
it is very scary.
You panic. And when we're like, hey, stress can affect this, but like, what is more stressful than your hair like massively falling out and coming out stressed? Yeah, you're like, I'm not stressed. Like it is, and it's extremely stressful. But like Sonia was saying, I think one of the things I talk to clients about is, like you said, Sarah, like it's not necessarily what's happening now, although it could be. we have to look back at what's been happening the last 3 to 6 months and understand like that word stress, like everything that Sonia mentioned with regard to like if you had COVID, vaccines, if you have a gut infection, gut dysbiosis, overall, what we most people think of stress with regard to cortisol, whether that's high or low, blood sugar irregulation, which is going to also affect our liver. Like all those things count as stress, and even some things like you could just have a not just, but you could have a fungal infection. Like you could have a fungal infection on your scalp just as you can anywhere else. I know for myself when I talk to clients, because hormones play a factor, like I think as you mentioned, with regard to if we have like PCOS or we have adrenal hyperplasia, any of those situations, we're going to have those feedback loops, and it can be, again, kind of like looking for that needle in a haystack. But this is where you peel back the layers and you look at what you can control, and what you can do to help mitigate where you're presently at, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah. Identifying that root cause is kind of like, or the root triggers in general. So like, it's not necessarily gonna be like one thing. It can be like, okay, gut dysfunction. So like that was a huge thing. I think that iron deficiencies is another thing that's like very common with these like heavier hair shedding clients. So you'll see like a heavy history of like either restricting dieting or maybe like a very like a meal plan based diet that was maybe lacking in micronutrient diversity. And then there's like androgenic alopecia. So, right. So that is like, that can actually cause long-term hair loss. And we'll see that in PCOS or hyperandrogenic cases, whether it's adrenal driven or genetic driven. And what'll happen there is the hair becomes thinner and thinner and thinner over time. And because the hair is becoming thinner, the follicle actually dies. So it's important to kind of like understand and what specifically you're going through, because with things like androgenic alopecia, we have things that we can use like saw palmetto, spearmint, rosemary oil to add onto the scalp that can kind of like help mitigate the side effects of hair loss that's being driven by androgens. And then, there's thyroid. I don't know if one of you guys wants to take over the thyroid and hair loss and kind of how that cycle works.
Well, I just wanted to mention one other thing while we're mentioning things, like diabetes and circulation issues. And so not even necessarily diabetes, but going into blood sugar regulation and insulin. So it doesn't necessarily have to be as far as someone who is borderline diabetic, but this could even go into that person that maybe is not eating consistently, or perhaps not prioritizing, like we've been kind of hammering always, single ingredient whole foods, again, those micronutrients. So even having like blood sugar regulation issues and insulin issues, that's going to cause inflammation. We're going to impact circulation, and that's going to impact that hair follicle as well.
Yeah. And when talking like thyroid, like often it's thyroid it's kind of like the effect of something else, right? So like cause effect, thyroid is like, it's it's like a master metabolic, hormone. So it's going to affect all processes, including that hair loss, hair growth, hair regrowth cycle. So if it's slow, like in a case of hypothyroidism, or even like a subclinical, hypothyroidism, then we're going to have, hair loss, or that regrowth isn't going to happen as quickly. And I think like this is where like what else is going on. I think one of you guys said it, besides hair, like are we seeing a lot of acne, like oily skin? Or like are you seeing also your nails are really slow to grow? Or gosh, what else? Like
gut dysbiosis, like
gut dysbiosis.
Looking at your period, like have your periods also changed? Because maybe it's low progesterone. So I mean, I think really starting with like a full workup. I mean, okay, we always start with diet, right? We always start with making sure, okay, are we eating enough? Are we eating enough micronutrients? And then getting into some lab testing, probably getting that full hormone panel, sex hormone panel, thyroid panel, CMP, CBC to kind of check on like those like anemia, which also could be related to B vitamins. And then kind of see what you're working with, from there.
Yeah.
One other
Autoimmune
thing,
markers.
yeah, one other thing I just thought of too, that, well, we kind of missed it, but I'm seeing a little bit of it, is like with allergy season. So with allergies, we see like more histamine, mast cell issues. I shouldn't say issues because that could take somebody like on a ledge there. But we start to see, issues with mast cell and histamine, and that also can cause, or we can start to see some hair shedding during that time, which also goes into, thinking when Sarah said like hormones, like even prolactin. So if, prolactin is high, this can also affect things, and which might be the case if you're pregnant or breastfeeding or rather. So there's a lot of possibilities of why, we could be experiencing hair loss now, but then as we mentioned, or Sonia mentioned, as far as like the phases go, this is also why like during pregnancy, you might have like this like vavoom lush hair. And then all of a sudden postpartum, there comes this period where you're like, what is happening? And that is that cycle of that, hair loss and hair growth. So
yeah,
a lot
my hair
to go into it.
Gorgeous when I was pregnant. And then right afterwards, I was like, oh my God, it's all falling out. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And here again, too, like just with the prolactin, like this is where you can really get into the weeds. It's like, what else is causing prolactin to be high outside of like pregnancy? Well, we can look at stress, right? So there's many different kind of avenues that we can take with regard to hair loss.
Yeah. I think that, one of the most overlooked supplements that I think most people need to be on is a good quality multivitamin. And this would include something like biotin in it as well. I know we don't like talking about, we don't really push products, I guess, that much on the podcast, mostly because it's so subjective. And while there's things like, okay, Cordy's, that's great for stress. Their other stuff is really dependent on specific client needs, goals, and what other things they have going on. But I think it's mind-blowing to me how many people don't take a basic multivitamin who are dealing with any sort of chronic issue. I think that's kind of like the first step we always talk about is like a good sleep, water, stress reduction. Those are like some really good, like frontline, very basic, starting at the ground that anybody can do to work themselves up to some of the more advanced protocols that I think people want to start into. Like most people are like, give me 10 supplements and then I'm, fasting and then I'm doing all this cycling and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you might just need to start like down here and be consistent and see what progress you get from there. So I think a good multi is a really good.
Yeah. And when we say good, like something that probably has like a methylated form of like B vitamins, like again, everyone is different. Yeah. Like I've had, clients where that was not a good form for her. So it depends, but for most people, I would say that's like a good place to start. And it'll give you, kind of a lot of nutrients for supporting a lot of different things, no matter kind of your cause of the hair loss.
Collagen supplements can also be really, really good. Making sure that you're using like quality supplements. Again, same thing with collagen, and the types of collagen are very like specific. So like ones that are specifically for like skin and nails. So like a blend of like type 1 and type 2 is always pretty good. But Collagenetics is a really good one. That's a Metagenics product. I don't know of any other pill form collagens. Do you guys? I know liquids.
I'm not a big, I'll be honest, because my clients are probably like, like Mara's quiet. For myself, because whenever I have a client come in with hair loss, going to like collagen and things like that is not my first go-to.
No, this is like working down.
If you are if protein is equated, then unnecessary, unless we're like illness, injury, ligament, whatever.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, if someone has like, if we're talking advanced, I would be, you know, maybe perhaps, well, you know, I'll tell you some advanced things. There is PRP and there is peptide therapy for some advanced cases. I really like what Sonia mentioned earlier as far as like essential oils. You can use like peppermint, spearmint, rosemary topically. Just know that like peppermint and spearmint are going to be more considered hot oils. And then you also need to think of, this is not going to be a peppermint, spearmint, or rosemary that you go buy at your Walgreens, because here again, sourcing of said essential oils and the farming practices of those, where they source them in the world, is going to matter. Also looking at the containers that these products come in. So you're not going to be wanting plastics, because that can also place a burden as far as your body detoxification if we're having hair loss issues. But I do like the use of essential oils, making sure you use a carrier oil, like something like a fractionated coconut oil. You can use olive oil, something like that. And I would do a test, like a test strip on your skin, because peppermint's very hot. I actually use essential oils. There's several companies out there. I personally use, and I'm not sponsored, but I personally use doTERRA or either Revive. They're very good quality. There's also Young Living is, I guess, another one. I've never used that. I don't know anything about that company.
Yeah.
But that's something to consider. You can also get those within shampoos that are actually out there. Which I will kind of mention with shampoos is I do not recommend going to like the Rogaine, and there's another shampoo that I can't remember. I think it starts with a P. I can't remember. I don't recommend the hair growth shampoos. Those are probably going to be more toxic to your body than they are going to be helpful. And essentially all they're doing, those shampoos for hair growth, is vasodilation. So kind of what I said earlier about circulation issues. Well, like peppermint and spearmint oil like does the same thing. Not to mention like spearmint tea, if you are having like actual androgenic issues as far as dominance, that can be beneficial, but I will also say it's not going to really do everything for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You also will see people. Go ahead.
What were you gonna say? Seed oil?
I was gonna talk a little bit about like minoxidil too, as well. Like,
yeah, same page. I was just
topical.
gonna say, well, I was gonna say they've even, I don't remember the study exactly, but they've compared rosemary oil to, I cannot pronounce it, so you pronounce it,
Minoxidil.
Yeah, they've done
that's like in Rogaine, right?
Yeah, it's really
so
similar, and you
over
can
the
get it,
counter, right? Like
but it can actually speed up. So it's to get the new hair to grow. So remember, it'll speed up the telogen phase to get the new hair to grow at times as well. So it speeds up the whole phase. So it can actually cause more hair loss in the beginning. And then eventually, like, you'll notice it slow down. So again, just being mindful that it's not going to be immediate with any of this stuff. This is like everything you do for your hair is going to be 3 to 6 months out before you see anything.
I think just like practicing, especially if you are maybe that more like oily side, or like even like dandruff, and noticing anything like that, like supporting, like not going too long before washing your hair, like making sure we're not having like too much buildup, because that's gonna, that could, potentially cause issues. And like doing like scalp massages is something else you could do, like gently, like with that, like with your, well, you could even put, correct me if I'm wrong, Mare, but you could put an essential oil in shampoo if you tested it out, right? And
as long as your shampoo's not a plastic container, because if you're using a good quality essential oil, it will eat the plastic.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good. No.
But that's an easy way, like, because, like you're thinking like, okay, how the hell am I going to do this? Right. Like, so if you can, kind of make yourself a little concoction in like a glass bottle to keep in the shower, and then just kind of like massage it while you're in there, I think that's a good place to start. And then, like I said, maybe like, go ahead.
You can do like an oil massage before you even get in, like specifically around like the front, and then rub all the oil in, and then leave it in, get in the shower, shave, do whatever, and then shampoo it out. That's another like really good method too.
Yeah. I have not looked into this too much either, but I know a lot of gyms, some gyms have like a red light therapy. And I've heard potentially there's some benefits there, like with using red light therapy. That would be a kind of, you got money to blow, like kind of thing. I think starting with some of these other things would be, you know, a better place to start.
They have the hat that's red light too that I've seen. And I've heard it's like, okay, it's not bad. It's like, okay, you know, but you just need to be very consistent with it. But I haven't seen the data on it. It's just like what I've heard, you know?
Yeah.
That's cool.
What else?
I honestly think you know what, like, I think for our listeners, like,
Short and sweet.
outside, like, getting to the what's actually going on, you know, and I'll use this as an opportunity to say an example. One other example, I have a client I'm thinking of right now. We're in a position where we're actually changing quite a bit with her hormonal profile. And this is not the time, like, for me as a coach, it's just how I practice, where I'm going to say, hey, let's add on this, that, and this, because I know that we're changing something. So for me, I'm like, hey, let's put less variables in, understanding that anything else we add, you could also react to, right? So like I mentioned, like peppermint, it's a hot oil. So if you put that on and you have an issue or you have like a reaction, well, that's not going to be a great thing either. So I know patience is really hard when you are having hair loss, because we have, all three of us had hair loss for vast amount of reasons. But I just will encourage anyone to just kind of stay calm and think methodically through wherever you're at. If you are going through, you know, digestive issues, hormonal issues, really look at those things first. Look at, like Sonia said, like micronutrient deficiencies. Are you dieting? Just stress in your life? Are you sleeping? Yeah, caffeine. I would say those, like, really assess those situations first before you start doing all the things on top of it.
Yeah. Less is more. And I think it's the hardest thing. So this is speaking from my own experience too, because I've gone through this 2 massive cycles. One of them I'm in the middle of right now. But if you think about 3 to 4 or 5 months ago, like all the stuff I've been doing, it's like, no wonder why the body's going through that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go, this is a short-term give up to a long-term go up, because it's getting through a harder time for something better, right? So anytime we're working through any sort of like detox as well. So if I have a client with like heavy chemical load and they're dealing with a lot of hormonal dysfunctions and there's like endocrine disruption, you know, is suspected, which you can't necessarily like test for, right? You can just kind of have that, having that ability to say, this is what's going on. This isn't a long-term issue. This is a short-term issue. I'll pull my hair back. I'll blow dry a little bit differently. I'll, you know, get a cute hat or whatever. Like, use one of those.
We didn't even discuss. See, this is going back to the way you wear your hair.
Yeah. So I was just holding up. I don't know what you call this. It's like a non-slip hair tie.
Yeah,
you would call it the spiral.
It looks like a string. It looks like a slinky that's connected.
Maybe I'll link it in the show notes, because this one I got actually works.
Yeah, I had that one too. It's great. But also like how you wear your hair. So like, you know, dancers, gymnasts, people that go to the gym all the time. Well, we constantly have the pineapple bun because we are boss ass bitches and that's what we do. Yeah. That also can be a thing.
Yeah.
Yep. And you'll see like, so like my issue is I get dry scalp right there, because I'll do the bun and then I'm fine. And the rest of my hair looks fine. So I'll just keep putting it up. And then like, I always feel bad because I sleep right in the like pit of Maddie's armpit. And so he gets the top of the bun and I'm just like, does it smell? Does it not smell? Like, do I bring it up? Does he bring it up? Like, is it going on? I'm like, it feels fine down here. But he gets literally the crown of my head where like all my sweat from like my workouts goes. I'm like, all right, it's right.
I love it.
He said, I love it. That one's fine. The filthier the better. The filthier the better.
Don't pull it. It's gentle.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm like real protective of my hair right now because it's just like, it feels like it's a really intense, intelligent cycle. I'm just like, okay, this is just the process. This is the process. Because that overstressing doesn't make it better. It is what it is. You kind of got to just say, okay, every single thing I do right now, crossing my T's and dotting my I's, is going to be for the next 3 months of hair.
Yeah.
I think the
when I was
worst.
really going through it, I would just continue to tell myself like next month it's going to be better. Like
Yeah.
I told myself that, and like it really helped, like just like saying that,
Yeah.
manifesting that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was like the feeling of like when you feel like there's one hair that you feel them coming out. And so like that was like the panic moments for me, is if I ever would go like and tie my hair back, and you know that you feel like this one piece of hair that's like really tight, and you're like, I was always like, no, I don't want you to come out. I don't want you to come out. Please stay
I'm
in.
shampooing like this. Just like just tapping my head, barely touching. I'm like so gentle when I'm brushing it right now. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even.
Yeah. God.
But
Getting
it's
a good
fine.
blowout is always a good thing. I will say that. Getting a good blowout, like that is my jam. I love getting my hair washed by somebody else. Like
Yeah.
that
That's
is
a
like the
good
best
scalp
thing.
massage too.
Yes.
Oh, they just rub it. Oh, so
Book
nice.
yourself a good blowout. That's gonna be another suggestion.
Yeah. And using like I really recommend utilizing things like I have a really good maybe I can send you the links there and you can tag it in here, because dry shampoos are known for their neurotoxicity, like known.
Yeah,
It's
a good
proven fact.
non-tox.
Yeah. I have a really good non-toxic one that's like really good to just give a little bit of volume. If it is something that you're going through, you can just go in there and just kind of add it to your scalp, add it up on the top, and then froof it up a little bit. And then it's like a really good non-toxic way to add a little bit of volume to kind of like work through some of this stuff.
That's a good note too, is like to look at the products that you're using, because granted, you could have been using the same shampoo, you know, for the last 10 years, but guess what? Your body has changed since then. Your toxic burden has changed. So looking at things that are like sulfite free, paraben free, you know, just really looking at what you're putting on your body. And like Sarah actually made the suggestion earlier, is doing your hair less with less like heat. Like, so if you're a chronic wash my hair every day, like let that shit be, like, don't do it.
Yeah. Think Dirty is the name. It's a free app that you can use, and you can like scan things. Think Dirty. And then our clients also have access to some discounted products through Wellevate, if you guys want to ask us about that.
Yes. Yep.
A lot of that's stuff there.
Yeah. If you are a client of any of us, they have a lot of beauty products, even dog products, like all the stuff on there is like very
I get toothpaste from there. Yeah.
Fluoride free and just all the good stuff. So cool. Well, hopefully this is like helpful to you guys, and make sure to share, leave us a review, tell us what you think. And if there are topics that you guys want to know more about, I had I'll say them off air. I had 2 people messaged me and they're like, you guys should do a podcast on this and this. And I was like, those are awesome topics. And I think that if there are things that you guys want to know more about, or if you want to know more about, you know, protocols for this or whatever it is, just be vocal, because we want to serve you guys. Our goal for making this podcast was to bring information through a platform where we could collaborate on our different philosophies around healing, because we are all very different in some ways and very similar in other ways. And I think it's very small-minded to think that one way is the only way. And we want to bring a collaboration for you guys through the process of healing, mindset, sexual wellness, whatever it is. We want to support you guys. So let us know what it is that your little heart's desire, so we can bring that to you. And with that said, anything else you guys want to add in?
No, but I completely agree. And the 3 of us love the long form content. So
yes.
Here to continue that.
Yeah.
Okay. Until next time on Unnamed and Untamed.